Hello and welcome to Lupus LA's Your Story, Our Fight podcast. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, and right off the bat, I want to thank our incredible sponsors, Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals, Emerge Business Solutions, and the terrific folks at Gemini Beauty. We appreciate the support of the podcast and allowing us to tell these inspirational stories, and we certainly have one of those today. We are talking to two people today, Teri Scott, who's a lupus patient, and Demetria Buie, who has a very interesting story in that she was almost a lupus patient, and she started a whole bunch of advocacy for lupus patients, and turns out she may not actually have lupus. So, but these two have formed an incredible friendship and bond, and so we're going to get both of their stories at the same time today. So thank you both for joining the podcast. Let's start with Teri. Tell us a little bit about your lupus story and how you eventually met Demetria. But let's start with a little bit of your lupus story.
I began getting sick, I say around 96, maybe 95, 96. I was a junior in high school. It started with my joints hurting. They told my mom at one point that I had sprung both of my ankles. But I was like, I hadn't did anything. So how did I sprain my ankles? And then it moved to my knees, and I started breaking out. My hair started falling out, and it was just back and forth to the doctors, back and forth to the doctors. At first, they told my mom I had arthritis. Then they told her that it was possibly leukemia. Like, they just didn't know. So we were back and forth. And then finally, my senior year, which was in 97, they came back with the lupus diagnosis. So
maybe here's what I'm going to do. Demetria, why don't you tell us about why you originally thought you had lupus?
In 2010, I was in a car accident and I was hit head on. And so I went to the hospital. I was fine and everything. And so about a couple of years later, I kept going back to the hospital. I seen over 25 different doctors within the next 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
And one doctor did mention lupus, but I had no idea. I was like, lupus? I thought it was some type of weird disease or something. I had no idea what was going on. Literally, I had over 50 CT scans and x-rays and everything. And it was dealing with my joints. I could barely stand up. I was having headaches. I was fatigued. I had to quit my job and everything. And so I went and got tested. They said, we want to test you for lupus. I'm thinking it's a cancer. I had no idea what it was. And it came back negative. And I continued to keep going back to the hospital over and over and over. I cannot tell you how many doctors that I've seen from different locations and everything. And so I got tested for lupus again because a different doctor said, I want to test you for lupus. And I got tested again a third time by a different doctor. And they just kept saying, you are having the symptoms of what we would perceive to be lupus. And so 2019, I ended up meeting a great friend here in my area who had lupus. And we was actually experiencing some of the same symptoms. And so that's how, I got started, with the lupus. Some doctors tested me with lupus, thinking I had lupus.
I guess what's interesting to me is that you still don't actually have a lupus diagnosis, but yet you have really become an advocate for lupus patients. So how did you decide to start your advocacy and turn that into something that's become so powerful, even while you're being told, well, we think you might have lupus, but it doesn't look that way?
Yes. So in 2019, one of my good friends in my hometown, even though when they was testing me for lupus, I still did not do my research. I was so afraid to research it of what it was. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it, I didn't know what it was, but she ended up having a lupus gala in our hometown, and she wanted me to come there and to support her. I went. And so the third time when I got tested was after her gala that I attended, and just really just getting to know her from high school, and getting to understand what she was going through while having lupus, in and out the hospital, and how I could support her in anything that she was doing. And so when I got the third test back saying that I was negative, I said, you know what, I don't want to stop here. I want to go on, and I want to bring more awareness to the lupus patients and to lupus awareness, because there could be so many people out here who's experienced the same thing that I could have, experienced. And I just really wanted to get involved. And so I started just meeting. I met this amazing lady who attended my conference this year, and I found out she had lupus, and I was like, wow. And I've been meeting so many women that has lupus and been connecting with them, and it's truly been a blessing.
Well, I think that one of the challenges, obviously, with lupus is that it's so hard to diagnose. There's no single lupus test. So you're really putting together, this array of results that can be interpreted, I think. So not that we wish anybody has lupus, but we really wish that you'll be able to figure out what's causing all your symptoms. But in the meantime, it's so great that you've put all of this out there and try to connect with so many other women with lupus. Teri, let me ask you, how do you remember meeting Demetria, and what kind of impact that's made on you?
So, a mutual friend of ours, her name is Tracy. She invited me to Memphis, Tennessee, to Demetria's conference, Refuse to Lose. And I absolutely hate flying. I'm terrified of flying. And so when she called me, I was at work, and she was like, call your sister, and I need her information because we're going to go to Memphis. I say, well, Tamika could go, but I'm not going. I'm not getting on an airplane. And she was like, whatever, just call her. So I called my sister and asked her, did she want to go? My sister was like, yeah. So I called Tracy back. And when I got off work, she had text me our flight itinerary and everything. And I was like, I didn't want to go. I wanted to go, but I just hate flying. I'm so terrified of flying. And that's how I met Demetria. And she has been a breath of fresh air. So I'm glad that Tracy made me go.
Now, for those of you who do not know yet, and I'm about to tell you, the fact that you're afraid of flying, given what you do for a living or what you just retired from doing, Teri works in a prison, and she's been a prison guard for over 20 years, which that to me, we're going to talk about that more, because I think it's fascinating, but also because of having lupus and doing that kind of job is really amazing. But now you're telling me you're afraid of flying. I don't know, Teri. My whole image of you is changing, but I'm really glad you took that flight. And
yes,
so tell me what it means to be supported by not just Demetria, but all that whole community. Because I think there's so many people out here on the internet doing a lot of advocacy and supporting of lupus patients. But tell me what the connection that you've made and how that's changed sort of your outlook on your lupus and your life in general.
Having that support, it makes me feel less crazy, because I remember when I first got diagnosed, a lot of people don't understand it. I think even the doctors, because one doctor made me feel like it was mental. And he was like, well, you're saying this and you're saying that, but your blood work is not saying, and your blood work is saying something different. So maybe you need to go see a shrink. He said it just like that. And I was like, what? And so having that support, it reassures me that I'm not crazy. Like it is a real thing. Lupus is real. So that is one of the things that I love about the support. It it lets me know, no, you're not crazy. Yes, you're sick. Lupus is a real thing. And that's why I'm so I freely give support. There was a young lady at my job. She was just diagnosed with it, and someone told her to come talk to me because she didn't know what it was, and she was scared. And when she came to my office, I immediately stopped what I was doing and, gave her that support, and I explained different things to her. So I I'm always open to talk about it and help anybody I can help, because I know when I first got diagnosed, I felt alone and I felt like I was crazy, because that's how people made me feel. They made me
Hmm.
feel like I was crazy and I was lazy and I just didn't want to do anything. So,
I think that's a really important message, and yeah, I think that needs to be heard by so many people, which is why we do this
yeah.
podcast. It's why you guys are here. It's why, we do all that. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. I want to hear more about Demetria, what you're doing for lupus patients. You have a magazine, you're a writer, and books, and all sorts of interesting stuff that's supporting the community. And then we're going to talk prison. Don't forget, well, I did not forget that. And so we'll be right back after this message.
Lupus LA's fellowship program is an essential part of ensuring the training of future rheumatologists. The nation is experiencing a serious shortage of pediatric rheumatologists. Today, there are approximately 300,000 children diagnosed with rheumatic conditions in the United States, but only about 250 practicing pediatric rheumatologists to meet this tremendous need. Call 310-657-5667 or visit our website at lupusla.org to support the efforts of Lupus LA.
We are back on the Lupus LA Your Story, Our Fight podcast, talking to Teri Scott and Demetria Buie. Demetria, when we left, we were going to talk about exactly what kinds of things you have going on. And I mean, you have done, I want you to tell it in your words, but you have done some amazing things for lupus patients. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of the programs that you have going on?
So I've started a magazine called Purpose Over Diagnosis for lupus patients. So basically, this is an issue that gives lupus patients a time to share their voice in writing. And so we put their stories in there because I interview lupus patients every Thursday night on Instagram, and it's just conversation. We just talk. And they have been so thankful because a lot of them say their voices are not being heard by their doctors and even family members and things like that. So Thursday nights, I've been connecting with so many women that has lupus, and I'm like, wow, and just what they have been going through and how it's affecting their bodies, their mind, just their life. And so every Thursday night, we also do prayer for the cure. So we are praying for a cure for lupus on Thursday nights. I interview them. We have the magazine. So we are actually release the magazine next year, to definitely just give out copies to people to bring more awareness and things like that. So I'm just super excited about this journey. I was laying in the bed one night and it was around 1 a.m. And I was like, man, how do I start this? Where do I go? And I mean, I prayed about it, and like the next day, literally, we just started on that Thursday, and we just went for it. And it has truly just been a blessing, man. This is so close to my heart. It really has become close to my heart.
Well, that's amazing. And let me ask you this: what were you doing before? What's your background? And has this taken over? Kind of, is this your primary mission these days?
So I am an author. I wrote my autobiography in 2014. I host conferences and retreats for female entrepreneurs of just helping women overcome trauma, becoming entrepreneurs, different things like that. So just adding lupus, awareness to the business and everything. It just really truly has been a blessing for me. And I'm just super excited to just take on this. So.
Well, we all appreciate it. Speaking for all lupus patients, especially it's rare that you find somebody who, without lupus, willing to go the extra mile for so many people with lupus. And I think that's super, it's super giving. And I think that's a terrific message to share. Teri, prison. Now I'm fascinated with prison, but what I'm mostly interested in is how you do that job for 20 years with lupus, because that is a physical job. It's a mentally demanding job. It's a scary job. And, I'm assuming most importantly, it's a pretty high stress job.
It is.
Not that I know firsthand, but that's why you're here to tell us. But I that to me is, I'm so impressed with how you've done that. Maybe you can give some tips to some other people who are in those types of jobs and those types of situations, how you coped.
Well, one, I have worked with some amazing people. Every officer, sergeant that I did work with, they knew that I had lupus. So they did most of the footwork for me. There was times that I did go out and do physical footwork, but for the most part, I had a good team, and I had a good support system there at the job. So it was easier for me to push myself to go. And then I found too that when I stayed home, I think it made me I felt worse, because I was just home in the bed and not moving. So I pushed myself for the longest to go. But like I said, I had a good team there at the job.
Yeah, I think that's, I've always said that too. If I stay home, my sickest days are the ones I stay home and my mind
Right.
takes over and tells me, oh, what's wrong with this? Why are you feeling this way? Why? When you're busy, I do think sometimes that takes your mind off of being a
Right.
lupus patient. Tell me about the stress part of the job, and tell me about the stress part, the stress management, given the lupus.
Yes, the job was really stressful. And maybe about 2 years ago, I came out the uniform. I came out the uniform and I started working in administration. And I thought that would be easier for me, but to be honest, it really stressed me out, because now I'm dealing with deadlines. I was doing grievances. I was taking all the inmates' complaints. So I would have to do that every day, Monday through Friday, and they would complain every day, like a lot of them. So, and with grievances, it's time sensitive. So I would have to send them out to the different departments, and they would have to get them back to me. And it became so stressful, because it was like I was begging them, I need those responses. I need them now. I need them by today. I need them by this day. And it became stressful. I thought I was making the right move coming out the uniform, but in actuality, no. It was way more stressful. And it's like my body just started declining. And I know it was from the job. So about 3 weeks ago, I was so sick, like I couldn't even hold my head up. And my mom told me, she said, it's time for you to leave that job.
That's tough. Who knew that being a uniformed prison guard is relaxing for lupus patients compared to working behind the scenes? But I commend you for that work for so long. And so what's the plan now? Now that you're retired from the prison system, are you feeling better? Did that immediately give you some relief?
I'm feeling better. I'm still a little scared. I talked to Demetria, I think it was last week, and she really encouraged me. Yeah, because for the first time in over 20 years, it's like I don't have a job. So, like, what am I going to do? Back in 2020, though, I did start taking pictures. So I a few people have been calling me to take pictures. So I did a photo shoot yesterday. I did one Friday, and I did one last Sunday. So I have been taking pictures. So I guess I'm just gonna have to work that. But it's kind of scary. It's scary and liberating all at the same time.
Demetria, how do you try to make an impact in a situation like this? I could tell that Teri was really inspired by your conversation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I inspire her, especially I tell her every day. I'm very big on saying, you know what, speak life over yourself. And a lot of times in life, unexpected things happen. And we can't control those unexpected things, but we can control our response on how we further in life and what we do from now on. And to get around positive people who are speaking positive in your life daily. And if you don't have those positive people, listen, sometimes this road could be lonely sometimes, but also, just speaking affirmations over herself every single day, even if you are feeling down and you may not have that job no more, but this may be your blessing, taking pictures, something you have to get that less stress off of you. And so every day, just look at it as a blessing and not anything bad. I don't have a job. You have to look at it like, what, this is a blessing now. Taking pictures. This could be just my purpose, what I really been called to do.
So tell me about some of the other inspirational stories that you've come across doing this kind of work.
Oh, wow. Just, even with talking about relationships with women who, desired to be married, and, how support their spouses are, and how supportive, they met someone who understands what they're going through. And if they didn't understand it, they did a lot of research and everything, because even the single women who I've interviewed and say, what, it's hard to, find somebody, because they have to really understand this is a journey. Like, lupus is my life. Like, this is, you have to be ready to take that journey. So I've been inspired by a lot of women who said that they met someone, even if they didn't know what lupus was, that they was willing to say, hey, I'm going to marry you, but also research and understood what she was going through with lupus, and say, what, hey, I'm here and I'm ready to take this journey with you. So I've really been inspired by that, because it can be a lot, for someone, but also, it's amazing to find that also.
I think that makes total sense to me. Teri, tell me a little bit about what your relationship with Demetria means to you, and what you'd like other people to know about finding support and finding whether even if you have to go on an airplane.
Yeah, even if I have to go on an airplane. Listen, like I said earlier, she has been a breath of fresh air. I'm so grateful. I told her this. I'm so grateful. I'm so humbled, because she could have picked anybody to interview. She could have picked anybody to put on her cover, her first cover of the magazine, and she chose me. And I'm just humbled. I'm grateful. And like she said, you need positive people, because I was telling her that I had spoken to someone else, and that conversation left me like just defeated. Like, oh, you're not going to get disability. They're not going to approve you disability, and it's going to be hard. And when I talked to Demetria, she was like, go ahead and do your disability, and you're going to get it. And if you don't get it, something's going to come up. So it was like, she just gave me that positive thing. And with lupus, you need that. You need someone positive. You need someone that's going to build you up. You need someone that's going to encourage you. And I'm grateful. I'm so glad I got on that airplane.
Well, we are glad you got on that airplane. And Demetria, we are so glad that you're doing what you're doing for lupus patients around the globe. I mean, this is, our world today is so virtual that you can really touch people again, you guys are talking to me from Florida and Louisiana, and we've interviewed people all over the world. And I think your magazine can really touch people like that too, Demetria. And I think that's really, it's special and it's inspirational, which is what we do this podcast for. So, Teri, I'll leave it to you. Tell me, what your hope is for future lupus patients, people who get diagnosed today, tomorrow, the next day.
My hope is that they don't feel alone, because lupus can be a lonely, lonely place. And my hope is that they don't feel alone, that they know that there's other people out there fighting the same fight, and that you don't have to just lay down and die. When you get the diagnosis, it doesn't mean death. So that's my hope. My hope is that they don't feel alone, and that they keep fighting and knowing that they can fight and they can win the fight. It's not always going to be easy, but you can fight and you can win.
Demetria, you picked the right person for the cover of your first magazine. What do you want to say to lupus patients who are newly diagnosed, and what's your message?
Just as Teri said, to not feel alone. And, I am in total belief that one day there will be a cure. And I strongly believe it with all of my heart. This has become dear to my heart. It really has. And just meeting these ladies, I pray to give opportunities to ladies just to embrace their beauty, also to cover the cover of the magazine and not just stop here, but also don't feel alone. Reach out to others, and again, speak life over yourself. Even do days that you don't feel good, that you don't feel like getting up, and make sure you have that support around you, and just keep going, keep fighting. You're going to make it. Terrific.
You guys are both superb. I just want to add, stay out of prison. This should be a good message for people too. But thank you both for joining the podcast. We really appreciate all the work you do. We can't wait to see the magazine. And thank you both. On behalf of the entire team at Lupus LA, we thank you for joining the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Please tune in, spread the word, and come back for more inspiring lupus stories. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, wishing you good health, and to always remember, your story is our fight.